Hello everyone, welcome back to the Masked Story Write. Here to talk about books once again. Today, I'm be talking about all the most anticipated reads that I read in 2024. Now, I'm probably doing this earlier than other people will be because it's not the end of 2024 yet. It's only halfway through October. But for me, it's the end of my most anticipated reads. There are no other books coming out this year that I anticipated to read. No other books coming out by authors I love. Once I finish this last book that I'm reading, I will be done my most anticipated reads of 2024. So it worked out that there was probably about almost 2 books a month that came out from authors I enjoy, books that I anticipated coming out that I pre-ordered or pre-ordered out of the library once it was in their system and read them pretty much as soon as they came out. So today I'm going to talk about those books, what I rated them, and kind of review my most anticipated reads. You'd like to think that because they're anticipated reads from authors that have proven that to me at least once they've written a book that I've loved and rated 4 to 5 stars. You'd think that would mean that if I'm just going based on the books I read this year from my most anticipated authors and most anticipated books, that I should be rating them mostly 4 and 5 stars. But that's actually not the case this year. So let's get into that. So in January, first book that came out is Last Call at the Local by Sarah Grunder Ruiz. So if you watched my first video, remember that I mentioned her. She's on my automatic buy list for authors. She's only written 3 books. They're all romance-esque books, usually taking place on or by a yacht. They're all related in some way to like the yacht industry. I really like her writing, and actually this book kept that going. Like, I rated all her books 4 or 5 stars, and then this one, Last Call at the Local, I rated 4 stars as well. So she's still proving that I want to pre-order and buy every book she wants to write. So we started off the year strong. And then we got to February, and a lot of you on BookTube will probably also have read this book, or at least heard that it came out, and that's House of Flame and Shadow by J Maas. That is the 3rd book in her Crescent City series. Now in that series, the first book I loved. I rated it 4 stars. I cried. I just loved the best friend relationship that was in that book. It was very emotional. But the second book, I only rated 2 stars when that came out, and I borrowed that one from a friend. Actually, no, I did buy that one because I thought the series would be great, but I did not like the second one at all. So I ended up having to give that one to a friend. Luckily, they liked it enough that they wanted to own it. And then this 3rd one I made sure to borrow from a friend when they were done, because I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like, I didn't like the second one. I don't know if I'll like the 3rd one. I don't know if I want to own it if I don't love it. Because remember, in my last couple of videos, I mentioned how I am somebody who only likes to own books that I rate 4 to 5 stars, because that means I'm gonna reread them. Therefore, it's worth me owning them. If they're 3 stars or less, I'm probably not going to want to own them, because I'm probably not going to want to reread them. Therefore, I'd rather a library have them so that a bunch of people can enjoy reading the book at least once. So, J Maas, House of Flame and Shadow, I only rated 2 stars as well. I go back and forth on whether the second or the 3rd one was better. They're both pretty even for me. I felt they were both way too long, and I just didn't like the romance very much. So that one was not too great. J Maas is on my authors to read anything they write but order from the library, because she has proven that I can rate some of her books 4 or 5 stars, but she also has proven that sometimes they're only 2 or 3 stars. So I don't want to automatically buy her books in case I don't love them. So I'll just make sure I get them from the library, read them. If I like it, I will buy it after. Also in February, a book came out from my favorite author, which is Kelley Armstrong. So it's a sequel to a series. It's a long series. She's been writing this series for a few years now. It's called The Boy Who Cried Bear. So she's written this series that takes place in the Yukon. It's kind of like murder mystery-esque. She wrote, I think it was about 7 books, and then now she's writing it's like a sequel series. So it's still the same characters, but now they're in a new place. It's a 2nd book in this 2nd series. I rated it 3 stars. I enjoyed it. I did pre-order it. She's on my, Kelley Armstrong is my favorite author, so I pre-order anything she's gonna write. And she writes a lot of books in a year. She writes 4 to 5 novels in a year. So she's a great author to like. It was only 3 stars, but again, I still own it. I'd probably reread it. It's part of a series. I think I'd reread it even though I only rated it 3 stars. And then nothing came out in March that I was anticipating reading. So we get into April, and that's when Leigh Bardugo's standalone came out called The Familiar. Leigh Bardugo is on my authors to get everything out of the library list, not my automatic buy list. I loved her Shadow and Bone series, and I rated all her Shadow and Bone books 4 or 5 stars, but anytime she's written something outside of the Grishaverse, I haven't loved it, just personally. So that's why if she writes anything that's not Shadow and Bone, I always take it from the library first, and then if I like it, I'll buy it. But The Familiar, I only rated 3 stars. Enjoyed reading it once, but I don't think I'll reread it again. Again, just my own personal taste. Then another author on my automatic buy list, Kimberley Brubaker Bradley, released a book in April as well called The Night War. She writes middle grade books. She's one of the very few authors who writes middle grade primarily. I loved every book I've read so far by her. So I pre-ordered this one. I did only rate it 3 stars, but I do still own it because she is on my automatic buy list. There's a chance I'd reread it, but if a friend showed interest one day in wanting to have it, I'd probably give it to them. Again, it's only a 3-star read. She writes a lot of 4-star reads for me though, so I will still, the majority of her books I love, so I will still keep pre-ordering her books. And then also in April is a big month for releasing books that I anticipate reading from authors that I love. Next one was Funny Story by Emily Henry. I took it up from the library because I only so far love half of the books Emily Henry has written, and this one proved itself to be great. I rated it 4 stars, so after taking it up from the library, I then ordered it, and now I own it because I know I will reread it. Then Magnolia Wu by Chanel Miller came out. I read Chanel Miller's Know My Name, and I loved that. I loved it. Her writing was amazing. Rated 4 stars, and then I heard she was writing this children's book called Magnolia Wu. So I took it out from the library. Like, I'm not a children's book reader really, so it got about 2 stars from me. It was okay. Still glad I read it because I know from reading her memoir, her Know My Name book, that she had dreams of writing a children's book because she liked drawing and she liked writing, and that was a great way to combine the two. I'm still glad that I read it, but I'm fine just taking it out from the library, letting somebody else read it after me. And then we get into May. There was a book that came out called This Summer Will Be Different by Carley Fortune. I just started reading Carley Fortune last year. She writes a lot of romance books. This Summer Will Be Different, I only rated 3 stars. So I'm glad I only took it from the library. I enjoyed reading it once, but I'm fine letting somebody else read it from the library. And then another book by my favorite author, Kelley Armstrong, came out in May. It's only been 3 months since her last book. Then April, we get another one. So it's great. She's a great author to love. This one was called Disturbing the Dead, which is the 3rd book in her time travel mystery series. I enjoy the series. This book in particular, I only rated 3 stars. The first 2 I rated 4. So I'm still okay with owning it. She's still on my automatic buy list. I'm still okay owning this one because it's part of a series where the first 2 I love and I will reread. I will still pre-order the 4th book when it comes out in 2025. Then we get into June. June's also a strong month, or was also a strong month for books coming out that I highly anticipated. First one, Kelley Armstrong. She wrote her first rom-com called Finding Mr. Right. Unfortunately, I didn't enjoy it. I actually only rated it 2 stars. I'm very glad I didn't actually pre-order this one. I just happened to get that NetGalley was offering like anyone who wanted to review this, read it and review it in February could. And so I happened to get a copy then. I read it. I didn't love the romance. It felt a little too quick to believe. The comedy part was okay. Like, I did chuckle at some of those bits, but the romance part of the rom-com didn't quite hit, which is surprising because I love Kelley Armstrong's romances. So it was really interesting that I didn't quite enjoy the romance part of the rom-com, but I didn't mind the comedy part. I probably won't buy it, so it was only a 2-star read for me. I'm still glad I checked it out. If she writes more rom-coms, I'd still try them. And then Kelley Armstrong wrote a 2nd book in June. Great author to love. This one's called Known to the Victim. So this one's a mystery. I rated this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. She does suspense, pacing, and action very well. So anything that's thriller-esque, like a mystery, I know I'm gonna enjoy. So 4-star read, I own it. I'm glad I own it. And then, Mhairi McFarlane. She is on my authors to read any book that they have coming out from the library list, because she has written one book that I loved, and then the rest of her books have been at least like 3-star reads for me. So I enjoy reading them once. She's consistently proven that I like her writing. She wrote in June, You Belong With Me came out, and it was technically the second book to a previous book she wrote a few years ago. It was a sequel. I actually enjoyed this one more than the first one. I rated this one 3 stars. Again, I'm glad I don't own it, but I enjoyed reading it once. Then I'll still keep reading her because I wanted to write another 4-star read for me. Or 5-star read, even better. And then we get into July. July was a heavy month for the Avatar Last Airbender fandom, because in July, The Reckoning of Roku came out, and that's part of the past Avatar novel series that's been coming out since 2020. So this one's obviously on Avatar Roku. It's the first book on Avatar Roku, but this one was written by a new author. So the last 4 books, 2 of them were about Avatar Kyoshi, 2 of them were about Avatar Yang Chen, were written by F.C. Yee, and I loved them. There were 4 or 5-star reads. This one is written by someone new. Didn't like it as much, but I rated 3 stars, so it's still worth a read. It wasn't quite matching my taste as well as the first 4 with the first author was. And then in July also, another Avatar book came out, and this one was called The Bounty Hunter and the Tea Merchant. And if you remember Avatar The Last Airbender TV series, the Tea Merchant is obviously Iroh, and the Bounty Hunter is June. I rated it 3 stars. I find that with most of the comics that I only rate them about 3 stars. There's a few that I rated 4 stars, but they're not as good as the show. The show was great. Nothing else came out till this month, till October. And I'm currently reading that book right now. It's another Kelley Armstrong book. It's her 2nd ever horror book that she's written. It's called I'll Be Waiting. So she wrote another horror book last year that I read. I rated it 3 stars. It was a good read. I'm hoping this one will be a 4-star read. I'm not too far into it, but so far I'm getting 3 to 4-star read vibes. I'm hoping it's a 4-star, but we shall see. Well, that's all my anticipated reads this year. There is no other book coming out in 2024 by any authors that I follow, so I decided to do this video now. It kind of gives you more of an insight into the authors I love and the books I love. It kind of ties in the first 2 videos. All 3 of these videos tie together really well, because again, my goal of keeping my videos pretty general in the beginning is making sense to me, because I just want you guys to get a general idea of the type of books I like, type of authors I like, so you can see if I might be a useful avenue to use when trying to find your next read, because that's what I use BookTube for. That's why I follow a lot of booktubers, ones that I know have similar taste to me, because I use them to help me find my next read. Okay, so in summary, obviously Kelley Armstrong was pretty heavy this year. There was 5 books I read, novels, 5 full-length novels she wrote and I read this year. Again, highly recommend her if you want to like an author that writes in many different genres, as she will keep them coming. You don't have to wait very long for your next read. And then we go into statistics. So just based on my anticipated reads, you'd think it should be high. My average rating should probably be 4 stars just for these books, because they're by authors that have proven themselves to me in the past. But actually my average is a strong, solid 3 stars. 9 of the, 16 books of these anticipated books, 9 of them were 3 stars. And then there was 3 2 stars that I rated 2 stars, 3 that I rated 4. So exactly 3-star average. Which, I mean, that's okay. As again, 3 stars on Goodreads still means I liked the book. So that still means I liked the anticipated reads. But there are only 3 that I loved. Which is, it's an interesting year. Very interesting. I hope the anticipated reads of 2025 are stronger, match my taste a little better. I'm hoping. Another kind of motivation for me doing this video early-ish is I know in November, I think it's mid-November, end of November, Goodreads releases their kind of nominations for the 2025 year, like best books based on genre. Goodreads Choice Awards, I think they're called. I know it's pretty much basically a popularity contest, so pretty much only very, very, very well-known authors are going to be on that list. So based on the books I read this year, probably I'm only going to see Leigh Bardugo's book on that list. Probably definitely Sarah J Maas's book. It's going to be on, probably in the romantasy category. Emily Henry, her book. I think Carley Fortune will make it on. She's pretty popular for romance books. But probably just those four, I think, out of all my authors. See, my other authors I read are lesser well known, and some of them I don't even hear talked about on BookTube at all. I wish some of their books would make it on the Goodreads Choice Award list. Chanel Miller's children's book and maybe the Avatar comic book might make it, because they're in like the children's category and the graphic novel category, so maybe they'll make it on the list, on the Goodreads Choice Award nomination list, but we'll see. If I had to recommend any books based on my anticipated reads for this year, obviously it'll be the 3-4 star reads for me. So if you haven't read Funny Story by Emily Henry, highly recommend. If you haven't read Known to the Victim by Kelley Armstrong, which probably a lot of you haven't read because Kelley Armstrong doesn't seem to be talked about on BookTube too much, highly recommend her, especially if you like mysteries, like suspense and good pacing. And then Last Call at the Local by Sarah Grunder Ruiz. She's a great romance writer, highly recommend. I don't hear about her on BookTube very much either. I challenge you to read it, especially this book. The last question I want to leave you with is, were any of these books your anticipated reads of 2024? If so, what did you think of them? I'm curious if anyone feels similarly to me. And with that, I will preemptively end my 2024 anticipated reads list. I'll probably do more of a summary of everything I've read this year closer to December when everybody else does that. But for me, my 2024 anticipated reads are done for the year. Minus this one. But I've read so much Kelley Armstrong, I can kind of get a vibe of what I feel for a book after the first quarter, which I've already reached pretty much. I will leave you there, and we'll see you in my next video. Bye.